I think the greatest impact of watching the documentary Class Dismissed was kind of coming to this realization that my that we would be considered working class. And I guess I've always kind of considered us middle class because um, both my husband and I feel are intelligent and hardworking and everything, and so much of what I tease about, like with being white trash, um, and how it's portrayed, I didn't realize how much those images and things that I have seen on TV and just in other things, I didn't relate to that because we're not like that. We're not unintelligent or slobs or lazy or anything like that. And I think that's kind of been, I didn't realize what a huge disservice that is and how minimalized and oppressed that the working white class has been, um, in some ways worse than others. And then if you go ahead and put in the fact that we're Mormon or LDS, it's even more of a subspecies, which has kind of given me a lot of pause on how we're perceived. One thing that really stood out to me in the documentary too was just how wrong the idea of mediocrity is. That if we all just try hard enough, we can do anything we want. But there really are some unfortunate barriers that we have to overcome, or to move up a class or anything like that. And that can be really depressing when you look at that. Particularly when you're struggling. You hope that someday you'll just get out of it, but kind of coming to the realization that easily said but not done. But I just think you kind of have to go back to what you know in the gospel and what we've been taught to live within our means. And call eternally grateful that there are systems in place to help us. So you can say that that documentary kind of greatly affected me. It is super unfortunate that there's so much money tied up in CEO salaries and everything else, and very little is the trickle effect. Yeah, not so much. Even here in Orem, that is very evident with some top executives and the land that they have purchased from our city and turned into their little playground. And yeah, they do give back, and they have, put in a place for the community to come and hang out and everything. But the percentage of that compared to the total wealth is just a drop in the bucket. Anyway, it's a complicated situation. Um, as far as comparing my reaction, my son also watched this, and at first his reaction was like, "This is really boring." But as it continued on, I think he kind of realized that there's really something not good about um, the huge divide in social class and wealth in our country right now. Um, he's also studying our country compared to other countries, and um, and kind of has kind of played into the whole scenario of, yeah, we're way richer than everybody else, but I think it's more of the cream of the crop in our country is way more than anybody else, and also way more than us. Um, while we do have some privileges here, especially with our freedoms and stuff. Um, as far as the documentary relating to race and gender and immigration and language, the social class issue and kind of the pushing it to the back of everyone's memory um, or for or something that is really clearly driven. We've kind of all just accepted this ideology as long as we're not bums on the street, that we're all middle class. But that's not the truth. And it affects everybody: race, gender, those who immigrate here, and language that we speak. Everyone is represented in the working class, and so there's a lot of mixed and intertwined issues with it too. Becomes very complex. I think one thing that is starting to work is that we're realizing combined we can have a voice, that there is such a numbers majority of the working class that we really do have the ability to change things. We just have to be willing to stand up and fight for it. And that can be a little scary, especially when you live paycheck to paycheck. One scene of the documentary that was particularly telling was when they were reviewing the sitcom Roseanne, and how that was helped with feminism as well as representing working class. My mom didn't let us watch that, and for good reason. It was crude in times and stuff like that. But I didn't realize how much she had put out there to have the working class represented and to be, a good mom and stuff like that. When it was probably more against my religious values, but as far as in like the traditional world, it was probably a pretty accurate rendition just of a mother working hard and trying to provide for her family, and being a really strong one in there. was unfortunate that the dad was not as intelligent or aptly, working hard. And that just isn't the case. Having parents that work hard in different ways and help provide for their children is, I guess you could say, kind of like an LDS ideal. You probably see that more in some like older 80s videos and stuff that the church put out. Anyway, that's kind of what I thought about the documentary, and it was very telling to realize where or what class that I really am and the different hardships that we have facing, not only just to make ends meet, but also to change the perspective of what of how we are portrayed. And the exciting thing is that television really isn't run by big networks as much anymore, that there's so much choice in what we watch. And if we are selective, then slowly the things that the programs that put out there can be more accurate as we choose to be more selective in what we watch.